hear your whispers. So when we're normally talking about either each other or about other people that aren't here, don't right now, you can get together and do it when the mics aren't on. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 9, what's the official time? 9:36. And can we call the roll, please?
Yes, Mayor Steve Geller.
Here.
Dan Atkins.
Told me he would not be able to make it today.
Kamasha Sevia. Here. Andrea Sayano.
Here.
Casey Carl Kozlowski. He's not here right now, but he did say he was coming. Mayor Levy.
On his way.
Coming home. Ramona Matlani.
Here.
Phil.
Here.
Mayor Cantalis.
Here.
And Laura Simon.
Here.
Sorry. Thank you. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of the May 28th meeting?
I have, and I move to accept.
The motion to accept the minutes. Are there any additional corrections? Are there any objections? Are there any objections? Are the minutes adopted without objection? We will now hear a revenue report from Randall.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Mayor, President Ritter, and members of the Tourist Development Council. My name is Randall Lukauer. I'm manager of the Tourist Development Tax Section, and I will report on the June 2021 reporting period CVB Tourist Development Tax collections. The CVB portion of the June 2021 reporting period collections totaled $5,988,259, which was an increase of 220.6%, or $4,120,189 when compared to collections for the same month in fiscal year 2020. The CVB portion of fiscal year 2021 revenue collected through the June 2021 reporting period totaled $41,933,554, which was an increase of 17.9%, or $6,351,581 when compared to collections for the same period last year. The CVB portion of the June 2021 reporting period collections increased by 60.2%, or $2,249,261 when compared to collections for the same month in fiscal year 2019. The CVB portion of fiscal year 2021 revenue collected through the June 2021 reporting period decreased by 12.7%, or $6,099,369 when compared to the same period in fiscal year 2019. Our top 10 hotel June 2021 revenue increased an average of 381.5% when compared to the same period last year, and represents 15.3% of the total revenue collected during the month. Revenue from all hotels totaled $6,510,785 and represented 72.5% of the total revenue collected during the month. Non-hotel revenue totaled $2,468,868 and represented 27.5% of total revenue collected during the month. We had 66 new accounts representing 431 units, which were added in June 2021. And to date in fiscal year 2021, a total of 369 new accounts have been added, representing 3,537 units. The collection expense for June 2021 was $43,233, and the CVB's portion was $23,623, which represents 0.4% of the CVB's monthly reporting period revenue. To date in fiscal year 2021, the CVB expenses total $231,490, which represented 0.6% of the CVB's reporting period revenue collected through July 31st, 2021.
Is that all?
That's all.
Thank you. Now, are there any questions of Mr. Luchnauer? I killed your name, which is why I originally called you Randall. Are there any questions? If not, I don't see that we need to adopt the report, so we can move on. Market update, Candace Hartzell, Senior.
I am sharing my screen. Hopefully you all can see. Just give me 2 seconds. All right, so good morning. Stacy asked me to run through the numbers, and there's a lot of good news to unpack, but I will fly through these quickly because I know we have a full agenda today. Hot demand, which is the number of rooms sold, has been unbelievable this summer. The hotel demand has just been off the charts, and so has Visit Lauderdale's ADR. So let's dive into the latest hotel metrics. At the last TDC meeting in late May, the final numbers for May were not yet available. So let's start there. For the month of May, represented here in blue, and the month of June here in green, Visit Lauderdale exceeded 2019 for all 6 hotel metrics. So that's occupancy, ADR, RevPAR, supply, demand, and hotel revenue. The same is true for July with one exception. Occupancy was flat when compared to July 2019. Why is that? Demand and supply grew at the same rate. Think back to those college courses. But July takeaways are still very good. Demand exceeded 2019 by 14%. ADR and RevPAR were both 34% more than July 2019, which contributed significantly to the 53% increase in hotel revenue over 2019. A little trivia here, May's occupancy of 78% is the highest May occupancy on record. And I went back 36 years for that. So what's driving all of this? We ask our hotel partners that question on the monthly performance survey, and overwhelmingly they reported pent-up demand. With more folks vaccinated, travel restrictions outside the US are still in place, and beaches continuing to be high on the list of wants, Visit Lauderdale has what the American travelers are looking for. We are starting to see some hesitancy towards travel, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Now, what have the past few months done to our year-to-date numbers? This slide is showing the first 7 months of the year, plus the first 3 weeks of August. Occupancy is down 7% over the same time in 2019. ADR is down 5, RevPAR is down 11, demand is up 2, supply is up 9, and hotel revenue is down 3. The graph on the bottom plots the percent change for each metrics by month as compared to 2019. So if we focus more on the last 3.5 months, so the right-hand side of that graph, the dotted line in the middle represents the break-even point over 2019. So all the points above that dotted line mean we exceeded 2019 metrics. So you see here, May and June and most of July are above that dotted line. The first half of August, all the metrics, with the exception of supply, show a little bit of a downward turn. But remember, this is percent change over 2019. So August is still outperforming the same period in 2019, with the exception of occupancy. Monthly occupancy through August 21st, so last Saturday, is currently 12% below the same time in 2019. So let's talk about the last few weeks. We are experiencing a little bit of a slide, but all the news isn't bad. Remember that August and September represent our slower season. Back to school starts, the height of the hurricane season. We typically see a little bit of a slowdown starting in early August. Usually in a normal year, we can expect a 2 to 4% drop in occupancy and about the same in ADR when we're looking at performance week over week. Over the last 2 to 3 weeks, we've seen it to be a little bit like 8 to 10% week over week decline in occupancy and more like a 5 to 6% drop in ADR. So our backward slide is a little more than we usually see. And I think it can definitely be attributed to the combination of the Delta variant, the constant barrage of national headlines focused on Florida. But here's the silver lining. When we look at week over week change across the larger destinations, Visit Lauderdale performed better than nearly all the others, meaning our backward slide isn't as great as the others in Florida. So let's jump back to good news. TDT collections. You've already heard the good news from Randy just a minute ago, but we thought a picture is worth a couple extra million. So the purple line is 2021 collections by month. 2019 is represented with the orange line. And for anyone interested, 2020 is in gray. Looking at the last 3 months of collections, so April, May, and June, TDT collections exceeded the same time frame in 2019. To put it in perspective, in January, TDT collections were down 37% over 2019. In February, we were down 31%. But then our hot demand summer hit, and June's collections exceeded 2019 by 60%. Based on July's hotel metrics and preliminary numbers coming from Randy and his team, July's collections will exceed 2019 by 55% or better, which is good. Year-to-date collections, so that's January 1st through June 30th, 6 months. TDT collections are down 1% over the same 6 months in 2019. Looking at it a little differently, the total collected in the calendar year of 2021, so 6 months of collections, is now within 400,000 of the total collected all 12 months of 2020. So all good news. Let's look at what all this means going forward. So a quick look at the hotel forecast. This slide is mapping monthly occupancy. For past perspective, 2019 is in orange, and that is our baseline for measuring the success of our recovery. 2020 is in gray, and the first 7 months of 2021 are in that purplish blue color. The green line is forecasted occupancy for the remainder of the year. You can see it clearly follows the pattern of 2019, which is the orange line. Forecasters are anticipating Visit Lauderdale will perform very close to the same occupancy rate in August and September as we did in 2019. And then occupancy tapers off a bit, about 3 to 5 points for the final 3 months of the year. For 2022, the forecast again closely follows the orange 2019 trend line. I did not graph it here because it became a bit of a hot mess to look at. But January and February 2022 are expected to perform very close to the 2019 that you see here. Forecasters have March, April, and May performing slightly below 2029 at about 80 to 85% of 2029. So looking long range, forecasters still feel 2023 is when we start to really put up monthly occupancies that strongly rival 2019 metrics. I will say take these forecasts with a grain of salt. Forecasting was fairly easy before the pandemic. Forecasters knew the patterns, they knew the competitive sets to compare against. Some will say that it was a competition for who was the most correct. Now it's more like, what in the world can they get right? Are they even going to get close? So forecasters used to give 1 to 3 forecasts, a baseline, a downside, an upside. Now some forecasters are giving 9 versions, which is a little ridiculous. The good news for Visit Lauderdale, we have been outperforming the occupancy forecast for all of 2021. However, even with the latest forecast release, it was completed a few weeks before this current slowdown. So we'll see how that kind of plays out for the rest of this year. But the takeaway here, we're trending more back to a normal occupancy level, and that's good news. And we are getting back to normal a little faster than the forecasters were originally saying this time last year. So looking at the same type of data, but now for ADR forecast, the remaining months of 2021 are in green. The latest release increased fourth quarter 2021 by 23%. I think that's a bit of an overcompensation by our forecasters because they were so far off of our hot summer rate. But looking into 2022, the forecast does again mirror the pattern of 2019, I'm sorry. One forecast has us outperforming 2019 in all 12 months. I think that's a bit aggressive. Another forecast has Visit Lauderdale performing at about 90% of our 2019 rates. Regardless of which forecast is right, it's positive news. We're all moving in the right direction, and we're not going to look back on 2020. A quick view of the hotel pipeline. Remember from an earlier slide, I said our supply, which is the number of available hotel rooms in the market, is up 9%. Here's why. In 2020, we saw 6 properties open. The majority of those were downtown. That's represented here by the red stars. There are 2 outliers, one in Tamarack, one in Deerfield. So far in 2021, we have seen 7 properties come online. The majority of those along the beach, from the 2 in Pompano to 3 along the Fort Lauderdale Beach corridor. Those are represented here in purple. And right now, the pipeline has 7 properties scheduled to open before the end of the year. 2 are down in Dania Beach at Dania Point, another just west of I-95 on 595, one out in Miramar. The 4 Seasons over on the Barrier Island, as well as the reopening of the Hillsborough Beach Resort. We are seeing a push on projects. In general, supply growth is a little less active than it has been. Just a few months ago, our pipeline listed approximately 1,400 rooms coming online in 2022, and an additional 2,300 rooms in 2023. Looking at it today, only half of those 14 rooms are expected to come online next year. And 2023's pipeline has now increased by nearly 1,000 rooms. As we know, this changes frequently as the market fluctuates. One last supply note, and this is a little bit kind of muddy, but STR, who's the industry expert of hotel metrics, recently released a list of top 10 U.S. hotel supply growth markets over the next 5 years. Many factors went into their formula. It's not just construction projects. They looked at population growth, employment, multifamily construction, new retail. 3 Florida destinations made this national top 10 list. Daytona Beach was number 1, Miami was number 2, and Visit Lauderdale was number 9. So this speaks volumes to investors' confidence in our destination. I'm almost done. Quick note on labor. July's employment numbers for Visit Lauderdale are down 9% as compared to 2019. That translates into a loss of approximately 8,800 jobs. To put it in perspective, we typically see a drop in jobs from June to July. Chalk it up to seasonality factor, that type of thing. But in 2021, we actually gained jobs between June and July, about 700. In fact, month over month, we have gained jobs in every month in 2021. July's job numbers were the highest month of employment for our industry since March of 2020. That's a very long 16 months ago. When considering the larger South Florida area, including West Palm Beach and Miami, that number slips to 13% decline over 2019. Considering that Visit Lauderdale was looking at declines of 25, 27% a year ago, it is another example of numbers moving in the right direction. I'll bet maybe not as quickly as we'd like to see or need. And on a side note, a recent national survey among business owners, not just hospitality, found more than 70% have had to change their offerings or their hours because of labor shortages. A look at the airport and what's going on there. Air passenger volume for the year is down 28% as compared to the same time in 2019. But for the month of July, passenger traffic was the highest monthly volume we've seen since February 2020, so the highest during the pandemic. Looking ahead at volume of flights, September's estimated to be down about 10% when comparing to 2019. October's anticipated to be down about 8%. And as the news have shown, we've seen some schedule adjustments from Spirit and others in November. So the gap widens a little bit in November, and we expect it to be down about 11%. Cruising recently set sail again after an unprecedented 15-month shutdown, which officially ended June 26 when Celebrity set sail from Port Everglades. Currently, Celebrity and Royal Caribbean are active at Port Everglades, and most ships are cruising at 50 to 70% occupancy. We do expect to see Holland America sail in late October, Princess Cruises to begin in early November, and Silver Sea in early December. Balearia, which began sailing again earlier this year, I apologize if I butcher their name, they offer day cruising to the Bahamas. They have been performing at about 85 to 90% capacity of their 2019 volume. Typically by July of each year, we would have welcomed about 2.4 million cruisers to Visit Lauderdale. So we're very happy to see the cruise lines getting back to business. Some experts are predicting sellout bookings for sailings around Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's holidays. Advanced bookings for 2022 are 50% higher than they were at this same point in 2019. So the demand is there. Because some of the lines have reduced the number of ships in their fleet, some experts are forecasting that demand will outpace supply early in 2022 for cruises. And the last note on cruising, a recent survey found that 80% of respondents said they prefer a cruise with a vaccine verification. All right, last slide, I promise. I just wanted to touch on a couple of the industry headlines that kind of have an impact here. The U.S. to Canada border restriction expired 2 weeks ago, so U.S. tourists can now travel to Canada with proof of vaccine or negative test, et cetera, et cetera. Travelers going the other way, though, Canadians coming into the U.S. will have to wait a little longer. Last week, the U.S. extended the closure of its land borders for non-essential travel until September 21st. Currently, only Canadians with an essential purpose are permitted to travel to the U.S. Also, late last week, TSA extended the mask mandate through January 2022. I'm sure most everyone has read about San Francisco, New York City, New Orleans, requiring bartenders and wait staff to check vaccine cards before permitting customers to drink and eat indoors. And now with FDA's approval of Pfizer, we're hearing every hour of others that are following suit. But I wanted to point out Puerto Rico. 2 weeks ago, long before the Pfizer announcement, Puerto Rico was the first U.S. market to require full vaccinations for all employees and guests at hotels and other accommodation options, including short-term rentals. So that was interesting. A little bit on advanced booking windows for leisure travelers do appear to have reacted to the rise in new COVID cases. Looking at booking data across the US, the share of bookings happening within 7 days is up, while the share of bookings happening with more than 8 days out is down. So leisure travelers are taking a little bit of a let's wait and see approach and booking last minute. According to the most recent traveler survey from Destination Analyst, 1/3 of American travelers have postponed an upcoming trip specifically due to the Delta variant. And that's up about 5 percentage points just from 2 weeks ago. But here's the good news. Here, I always want like the silver lining. During the recent round of earnings calls, hotel executives were optimistic over demand growth, especially in the corporate and group bookings. All are expecting to see a step up in business travel post Labor Day, and several expressed surprise that business is coming back more quickly than they originally thought earlier this year. In a recent national survey, 86% of companies surveyed said they have a strong intent to return to business travel. So the biggest unknown there is when will they do that? But we're all hoping it's soon. And Ed and his sales team are absolutely seeing an increase in group bookings. So that's all I have. Now I can take a deep breath. If there's anything you want to dive in a little deeper or discuss offline, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to help, but I promised Stacy I'd try to keep it as brief as possible. So there you go.
And that was brief. Okay, Candace, thank you. If you could do me a favor, since I have a press conference in a couple of hours, that one page that showed the metrics for the ADR for the hotels near the beginning, keep going back. Oh, okay. You can make a copy of that and bring it to me. That one. You can make a copy of that and bring it to me during this meeting. I would appreciate that because, as I said, I will mention that in my press conference later today.
Absolutely, I'd happy to.
Are there any questions for Ms. Hartzell? Are there any questions? If not, thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
President's report.
Very nice.
Sorry, no, actually, chair's report, sorry.
Yeah.
Chair's report. I was very surprised. I attended during remember that brief period of a couple of months over the summer where it looked like things were getting better and Delta wasn't around yet. I attended a business conference, the National Council of Legislators from 50 states up in Chicago. And I was assuming, because it was business travel, that it was going to be half of the size of our normal conferences. And it was one of the largest conferences we ever had, which just, I mean, not very much, small group. There were like a little over 325 attendees. And, probably our median is only around 250, 275. So I was surprised, but people are traveling. I'm not sure if they're traveling. Business people are traveling right now because of Delta, but I know there was a lot of concern that people were saying that people would no longer travel because everybody's used to Zooming and they're not going to go to business conferences any longer. That's not true. People do want to go and shake hands and go out to dinner with business contacts. And, I was heartened by that. Obviously, the big issue affecting us is this disease, carpet or something like that.
About that.
Just damn thing isn't going away. But I mean, we have heard Governor DeSantis continuously say that, no more, that he's not going to permit shutdowns. I have to tell you, that's kind of like, me saying, and I'm not going to permit 6-year-olds to be driving to school. Nobody is talking about shutdowns. I'm glad that he's saying he won't permit something that nobody is talking about anyhow. But I can tell you there is not a county commissioner. I've not heard of a local mayor, anyone that has been re-advocating for any type of economic shutdown, not with, the percentage of the public vaccinated that is vaccinated. There is discussion about mask mandates. The county administrator and I will be meeting later today to discuss whether or not Broward County will do a vaccine mandate. We've already instituted a mask mandate only in our county buildings, not using our powers as a government, but using our powers as a landlord over our own buildings. And so in all county buildings, masks are required, but there will be a discussion as to whether or not we will, we are heavily unionized almost entirely, and we are discussing with the unions whether or not we will do a vaccine mandate. I think we would like to if we can. But I just wanted to tell, in case I wasn't clear enough to the hoteliers and restaurateurs, that no one is discussing any type of government shutdown. We've been there, we've done
We
that.
don't need government shutdown.
I'm sorry, a government mandated shutdown. Nobody is discussing that. I have previously discussed film here. We're still working on that. Things have been progressing. We are waiting to verify. We put a fair bit of money into the budget for this, both one-time capital infusion of approximately $10 million, as well as an operating budget to set up a film commission. We're waiting again for the final budget approvals before we make, much in the way of public announcements. We've met a number of times with Emilio Estefan, who has been just absolutely wonderful in volunteering to help us provide guidance, expertise. We have, I don't know if any of you are familiar with John Huertas. He was Detective Esposito on Castle, and he is one of the stars of the TV series my wife watches, I don't call This Is Us.
Oh, yeah.
He's the Hispanic actor on This Is Us, Hispanic male actor. And we've been working with him. We've had, either surprisingly or not, a lot of significant celebrities that have been talking with us. And Stacy, I will be needing to meet with you. We have, I've been working to borrow a lot of the Hispanic functions from Miami-Dade County, Latin Grammys, the Hispanic MTV, things like that. And there's actually been a lot of movement in this, and they're very interested. What we've been pitching to them, and they like. First of all, and it drives me absolutely crazy when they're pitching this internationally to Latin America, everybody thinks this is part of Miami, which really annoys me. But they say, hey, whether we're meeting at the Knight Center down in Miami or meeting at the BB&T Center up in Miami, it's still, and I don't like that, but we're requiring as a part of our negotiations that when they're doing it, that they can't say they're from Miami when they're on TV, unlike Bon Jovi and Dania Pierre being live from Miami, or the Miami being part of the high tech, because they have a lot of high tech companies that are located in either Sunrise or Weston. But there really is movement on bringing a lot of the Hispanic media functions to Broward because we're less expensive and we're less crowded. And got a lot of Hispanics up here as well. I've seen the current population numbers where roughly in terms, not of, because I've seen it for reapportionment purposes, but we are roughly 34% Hispanic in Broward. So
That's all right.
I'll get you the detailed numbers.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, actually, it's not because don't forget there's 5% Asian. And when you look at they're slightly higher in the non-Black, non-Hispanic, what I guess Anglo population, slightly higher. If you look at for voting, it's overwhelmingly still white voters, a voting age population, citizens. But in terms of total population, it's much closer. Let's see, that's about it. We're about to adopt our budget at the county next month. And once we have the budget adopted, then we'll let you know. And but things are proceeding in film and in terms of trying to bring the Latin market to Broward County. Madam President, do you have but first, were there any questions?
Yeah, I just have
Yes, sir.
a comment. I think it's great that we're moving towards that direction. The direction of bringing film to
Okay.
to Broward. You know, my view is that Broward does not have a strong brand outside of these three counties.
Yes.
And when people nationally talk about where they're going, the quickest reference is Miami. And I think that's why they play that up more so than, so as you can see, we went to visit Lauderdale from Broward County Convention Center. I think that's something that the county should start thinking through.
Where are your restaurants?
In Fort Lauderdale.
And
And
okay,
in 5 different states.
Right.
right, I know.
When I travel to all those other places, and they
Right.
say, where are you based? I say Broward, and they say, where's that? I said, right near Miami.
I never say that.
In Fort Lauderdale.
I do say,
And I know where that.
I do, when I do frequently say I'm from Fort Lauderdale, but,
Yeah.
you know, as I do have to tell you, and I understand why the Visit Lauderdale as someone representing an entire Western Broward district.
Yeah.
And someone, when I was in the Senate, I did represent part of Fort Lauderdale, but, you know, we do have to make sure that
No, I understand.
everyone.
Everyone's represented.
not just-
Everyone understands.
Yeah, everyone,
Right.
no, I understand.
Okay.
I know a lot of people that I say, you know, I remember campaigning or going to these big county events and, you know, and you're campaigning. And so you ask, well, where do you live? You know, they say, oh, Fort Lauderdale. I said, whereabouts? Oh, in Plantation.
Right,
Okay.
Right.
So in a smaller world, smaller geographic area, people still identify as Lauderdale as opposed to Miami if they're within Broward. But outside, you're right. It's all.
And I don't want to be connected to.
I never, ever, if I'm at a function in Chicago and they say, where are you from? I say Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Because nobody has ever heard of Cooper City,
Right.
but I would never, ever say Miami.
How do we fix it, Mayor?
I'm sorry?
We have to fix this, you know, with the media. It's been going on for so long when
Well,
now with the new campaign.
Romola, you have to understand that Miami is about 50 or 60 years older than Fort Lauderdale. So it has a history. We're a younger city, as you can see, you know, and even Hollywood is, I believe, older than Fort Lauderdale, isn't it? Was it first?
We're 1925, I think you're like 1914 or something, or 08?
No.
No, but I'm just saying in terms of when it really became a
Tourist
a
destination.
tourist destination. It was post World War II, whereas Miami was a thing in the 20s, right? And it has that history.
And it has a larger population, but
Yeah.
Romola, I'm going to need to, let me just answer that. We will be, we're working, for example, with the film. We're saying, if you want our incentives, you have to say on the credits, either the city or the county. You can say Hollywood, Florida. You can say Fort Lauderdale, Florida. but you can't say Miami, and you must identify that you're either from a city or the county. But we're running out of time. Let me take this one last question, and then we'll move on.
Well, I was just, there, one is a comment, so we know that Miami affects appeal. So at the end of the day, that when people say those words.
Broward's pretty sexy.
Oh, yes.
I'm just in concert with everything that everyone.
Right.
The other thing is, when you're talking about the film industry, I was just curious, it's one thing you're saying, filming in these other municipalities, are you considering an event?
Isn't that great?
That's an event associated with the film industry that may pivot into the other municipalities as well, or what?
No. What we're talking about doing is
I can't wait.
stepping up the incentives, stepping up the marketing, having a film commissioner that attends some of the film festivals that will have books, some magazines, mostly everything's online these days, though, with series of locations where you can shoot in Broward County. So it will be in dramatically do your filming, do your post-production in Broward County, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, the Southwest Ranches. I mean, a lot of homes there available for rent. Where I do need to move this along, so let me call on President Ritter.
Let's go to the budget presentation because I'm going to make some remarks after we do the marketing.
Okay, in that case, we will get back to the president. Let me call on the OMB for the budget presentation, Elijah Anderson, Jennifer Steelman, and Norman Foster.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing us this time today to go over the FY County Administrators FY22 recommendations for the Tourist Development Tax Program. So first, we're going to talk about tourist development tax revenue. And we're going to start with a history lesson. So Broward County currently levies all 6 pennies that we're eligible to by the state of Florida. The first and second of those pennies was levied back in 1980, and the 6th and final penny was levied in early 2018. On this slide, we provide a history of the actual TDT collections going back to fiscal year 2008. We want to point out that you can see that in fiscal year 08 to fiscal year 09, we have a roughly 17% decline in TDT revenues, and that is due to the impact of the Great Recession. From fiscal year 2009, we increased incrementally until we get to fiscal year 18, where we have that big jump because we started levying that 6th penny. And then, as we've all been discussing, the impact of COVID-19, you can see our TDT collections go down sharply in FY20 to 64.2 million. For some perspective, that black line indicates our pre-pandemic expectations, where we thought we were headed in FY20, FY19. That red line is now our forecast currently. So we're getting back to where we thought we were at pre-pandemic, but at this time, we're still working our way up there. To provide some more perspective on our forecast for fiscal year 2001 and fiscal year 2002. Our collections, just why our forecast for 21 is not higher than one might expect, is because between that October to March 2021 time framework, our collections were down an average of 42% when compared to the same period in fiscal year 2020, which was pre-pandemic. April is when we start to see the recovery begin. It was up 87% compared to April 2020. And then, as Candace was mentioning earlier, we had a great summer. Demand, TDT revenues, these all exceeded our pre-pandemic levels. So our forecast for FY22 is currently is $85 million. Why this might not be, why we're not forecasting a return to pre-pandemic levels yet is because there's some caution needed for some factors that we're monitoring. So as Candace mentioned, we recognize that the explosive demand we saw in the summer was due to pent-up demand. But in the future, we likely will need the return of cruise operations and international travel to return us to our pre-pandemic levels where we can stay there. And then, of course, there is the unknown impact of the Delta variant and also potential future variants going forward. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Alan Cohen, who's in person with you there, and he's going to talk a little bit about the Convention Center and Expansion Hotel project.
I'll make this very brief. You're looking at one of the more recent renderings of the site. We're moving along to a development that pretty much looks like that. Next slide, please. This one shows you the different elements. So just so everyone's clear, this is the existing convention center. We're just about done with the western expansion. We are on time to open that up October 15th. The new hotel will go on the north end and will be attached. This is the new CVB headquarters, and this is the east expansion, which will have the new larger ballroom space, meeting space, commissary kitchen, and the like. And then this is going to be a total 5-acre plaza, which will be a real amenity for both the convention center and the hotel to use. Next slide, please.
When is the thing on the bottom? Land. Oh, here you have it. Okay. The thing at the very bottom of the screen, it looked like an air conditioner.
Previous slide, please. Thank you.
That's the east expansion. I think that's a cool entire scene.
Mayor, those are photovoltaic.
Yeah. So when is that planned to be open?
Next slide, please. Okay. All right, so as I said, we're going to open up the west this month. We've already started work on piles and foundation work. The east expansion, May of 2025.
Is that the east expansion?
That's the east expansion that you were looking at, and then the hotel, September of 2025. Any questions? I turn it back over to you.
Alan, a quick question.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Quick question.
Yes.
You know, it seems the time frame, 4 years to build a hotel, it seems excessive. Is it because of stoppage of work during conventions, during meetings there, or it's actually 4 years?
It's, as a matter of fact, Andreas, it's partly because of that. We're building into the schedule the ability to accommodate existing clients that are using the convention center. We're building in weather delays because we're going to be building through at least 3 hurricane seasons. So those are the types of things that we have to accommodate.
Thank you.
Okay. What is next? Because we need to be moving on.
Okay, so we're going to go right into the revenues. This is the revenue overview for the entire TDT program. Just a few things to call out. In FY22, our recommended forecast is the 85 million, incrementally increasing in the out years. Something that's coming back in FY22, that second line, is revenue from convention center activities, since we are reopening at least the western expansion. The other revenues I'd like to point out is in the one-time subtotal section, we are getting a $3 million one-time source of funds from our partners at the convention center, ASM, and these resources are going to go for one-time improvements to the convention center. And then the big source of revenue is the proposed TDT-backed financing that will be issued in FY22, or planned to be issued in FY22 for the east expansion of the convention center. Now this chart, this is how the appropriations for all that revenue. Some of the big ones we'd like to point out here is the marketing, advertising, and promotions. This is the CVB's budget. As you can see, it doesn't really change from our FY21 adopted to FY22 recommended in terms of recurring budget. But on the next slide, you will see that we are able to allocate approximately 6.6 million of one-time dollars to the CVB's FY22 budget to bring them up to their pre-pandemic marketing, advertising, and promotion budget. Also, you can see here, this jumped significantly because in previous years, the convention center was closed for construction. So it is coming back online. So we do have some operating expenses related. In addition, one of the biggest components of the program is the debt service for both the east and west expansion. which on an annual recurring basis will be approximately $29 million. In FY22, we're using 25 million of recurring TDT and also some additional funds of one-time dollars to provide the full 29 million. Finally, some programs that were not included in last year's budget due to the reductions that had to be made were the 2 million for convention center maintenance capital, our reserve for contingencies at the convention center, and the full 7 million for beach and sand bypass recurring dollars. We are bringing that back as well. The other side of our one-time revenues, of course, the biggest component of the program is the East Expansion project. You can see on this slide, we are appropriating approximately 19.5 million of one-time TDT dollars to the project, and then we will be proposing to seek bond financing for the remaining 316. Then the 6.65 million of marketing, advertising, and promotions, that's the amount I referenced earlier. That will also supplement the CVB's budget. Some other things we want to call out last year to help CVB get through the pandemic. The reserve, we tapped into CVB's reserve. In FY22, we are fully restoring that reserve.
No, I said 10.
So on this slide, this provides a high-level overview of the changes to the program based on the reductions we made in FY21. So you can see that in most cases, we have increased the allocations for each of those programs. I've touched on them briefly. Marketing, advertising, and promotions recurring stays roughly the same, but one time is we are supplementing. Now this is an overview of the beach capital revenues. So we have the $7 million of recurring TDT that we are allocating to our beach program, along with our reimbursements from other government agencies. On the appropriation side, this is how those resources are planned to be used. And then this is a high-level summary of our reserves, some of which are required by bond covenants, and then our reserve for CVB, the convention center, maintenance issues at the convention center, and then our reserve for revenue fluctuation based on what we've gone through in the past. So now we're going to touch on briefly the challenges and needs competing for TDT funding. So of course, all on our mind is the COVID-19's pandemic's impact on tourism. Of course, a major one is the debt service cost, which will be 29 million annually going forward, according to current estimates. And then the strategy that Stacy's group is working on, how we market and advertise our destination in a post-pandemic world. There is cost increases in beach renourishment, and then also potentially maintenance and capital needs at the arena. High level over the convention center expansion project. GMP2, as Alan referenced, is expected to be completed by October. The East expansion, the total estimated cost is 335.6 million. I referenced earlier how 19.5 million of that was PAYGO, and the remaining was proposed to be TDT financed. Work on that project is anticipated to start this month. And again, just hammer it home, approximately 29 million of recurring TDT revenue is going to be needed for debt service for these two project components. Although it's not funded by TDT, obviously it's on the same site, so the headquarters hotel, it's also set to move forward in late 2021 with the foundation work starting later this month. The total estimated cost of that project is approximately $557 million. Again, to provide some historical perspective, this is a summary of CVB's marketing, advertising, and promotion spending. You can see we reached our peak in FY19. Stacy's group made some choices to reduce spending during the COVID-19 pandemic. And as a result, we were able to allocate a FY22 recommended budget of $19.5 million, which is a $1.8 million increase over their current FY22 budget. And then finally, this is just a snapshot to show you how much the beach projects have increased over the years. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Just a suggestion, Mr. Mayor. You know, it's a great presentation, starting with Candice. Is there a way that we can get this in advance to review? It's a lot to absorb here. Yeah.
I don't know how, I can't speak for the Office of Management and Budget. We
Okay.
could certainly give you a Candace's update. I mean, Candace does a
Yeah.
market update. How, are we doing it now?
Whatever, what is,
Yeah, so this came out 48 hours early. We can get them out to you earlier usually. It's a little bit of a crunch, but so it's came out 48 hours before the meeting.
Yeah.
But I understood, yeah. It's just, it's a matter, kind of up against a couple of different schedules.
You should have that though. I did send that to you.
is the last one?
Mm-mm.
We don't.
Budget, the budget,
The budget
the
we.
OMBC.
Yeah,
There.
I thought I did.
Okay,
I just want to let the TDC know that we are contemplating doing some sort of event for the hotel later on in the fall when we go vertical. The convention center will be open by then, so it would be more comfortable and enjoyable for attendees. And we'll get more information out to you about that.
How many keys is that hotel gonna be?
800. That's what we discussed and agreed with the industry on. We originally wanted to do 1,000 and we cut that back because of industry concerns.
The cost seems very high though. It's about 700,000 a key.
That's what it's doing.
And then again, you guys have the numbers, but it seems very high just starting for a new hotel. Unless it includes other infrastructure, you know, the plaza outside and everything, I'm not sure.
The hotel numbers do not include most of the plaza, but there are a number of specific reasons why. And at the next meeting, I'm happy to discuss that with you. I'll bring that information.
please. Any other questions? If not, President Ritter.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is our budget, the GFL, Visit Lauderdale.
President Ritter, while you're speaking, will you also roll your president's report into the conclusion of it?
No.
Okay.
Marketing. I'm gonna make some comments after we do the marketing update.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, thank you. We, in the past few years, we've just given you the budget in advance and had you take a look at it and then ask for questions. Every department head is available for you if you have questions about a particular department, rather than go through it line by line with you, which could take all day. So, this time I just ask if the members of the council had any specific questions or general questions about the budget.
President Ritter, can you go through this line by line and how long would that take? Okay. Are there any questions on the budget?
Well, yeah, Mr. Mayor, I emailed Stacy last night requesting if it's possible to get the historical spending for the last 5 years, just to see how these totals by major line items.
Right, and
compare.
get that by.
We can have that to you soon here. It's just, I didn't get that till this morning and our accounting software isn't that. Pull that instantly. So, but definitely we can absolutely pull that together for you.
So Anthony, if this is 38 million, right? If I'm reading it correct, the total budget, which is proposed?
So, yeah, so this, keep that includes the numbers for everything from my wording, for any day fund to staffing costs to the operating, actual buys of advertising, et cetera.
Just as a comparison to 19. Have that number, just to have a benchmark to start the conversation.
I have, let's see here, on hand here right now. Well, actually, tell you what, Elijah, are you still on there? I don't know if he's still on. He had, I think, in one of his slides, he pushed out there.
So let's.
Okay, if you don't have it now, maybe we can get it.
I'm happy to bring, certainly at the future budget meetings and, at the next TDC meeting, a breakdown of that sort of question, if you'd like.
I'd like to see that.
Is it higher or same compared to last couple of years?
So our operating expenses are right around the same, meaning that the amount of money we're spending on ad buys, et cetera, is all hovering right around the same, effectively. So I'd have to check to see if the rest of that is in terms of the money we're setting aside for the contingency fund, et cetera. But it's within a couple $100,000 or a few $100,000 from the 2019 number, what we're spending, I believe. And I probably shouldn't be saying numbers without having that in front of me. I just don't have this. So.
Yes, okay, Mayor Lee.
So,
Then Joe.
clearly Stacy and team, obviously you have a countywide mission here. And I don't like to be parochial about, cities, even though I'm the mayor of the city of Hollywood. But I do think that considering that there is a contribution to the tourist development tax that comes from throughout the county and mainly Hollywood and Fort Lauderdale because we have the most hotels, I get a lot of flack as the mayor of the city of Hollywood saying, Josh, we contribute so much to the, to the CVB and, what do we really see for it? So people don't see it as much. I think CVB does do a fair amount of sponsorships for group events that take place indoors, for example, at the Diplomat and what have you throughout the year. But it would be helpful for me to be able to demonstrate what the CVB is doing on the global level within the county. If perhaps you'd have dash the city on the different group and tourism sponsorships, or otherwise provide a how are we dividing the pie kind of in a way that other cities can see what they're doing now. Clearly, there's a relationship between the city's footprint in the tourist market for its expectation, I think, even to begin with what they're contributing and what they maybe ought to be expecting back. But I'm being sort of faced with some of my commissioners' concern that there's not expecting a dollar for dollar, ratio, but at the same time, wanting to see more investment in the big secondary market. I'll call it secondary to Fort Lauderdale, even though I've never seen numbers that compare us specifically with hotel rooms and one versus the other, but you get the point, and it's been a long-standing issue, and I think we ought to be able to show in the budget what we're doing so that we can maybe even for yourselves have a bigger bird's eye view to say, what are we doing now? I know some of that is what's being requested from the market. So if people are not requesting to be in Hollywood, then you're not pushing people there. I get that, but I think giving us a perspective on what's happening there, and maybe perhaps meeting with our city and talking about what it is that you do sponsor, so that if we have people coming in, we can, what fits the mold of the CVB. I know you obviously are in touch with folks with Ray Lynn and with Lisa Leota with the CRA and things like that nature as time goes on. But I think we want to have a stronger relationship there to be able to, again, buoy up the entire marketplace of which we're a big part.
Would it help if we provided a quarterly report to you
Sure.
on what's going on in Hollywood? I know that we send the PR that we receive to your PR people, to your marketing people, your tourism people in the city of Hollywood. I guess they don't share it with the commission.
Once in a while, we do see it.
But we do send that, every story that we get. And of course, every city has a page on visitlauderdale.com with content that was provided by the city to help, but we can certainly provide a quarterly report to you. We are in the process of getting, especially with the sports department, which is very, very active. And also for the 9 members of the county commission, a breakdown on where each event is taking place, so that even the commissioners can see that there are things taking place in Weston and Cooper City and Coral Springs and outside of,
Cooper City.
well, maybe not Cooper City.
I thought CVB didn't even know we existed.
So in that regard, though, with the first section being group and tourism sponsorships, obviously you receive applications, Stacy, throughout the year, and you decide as a staff, you have to fund things within the actual fixed budget as opposed to these applications that come to our board from time to time. What is the process for these folks who are listed here as being provided with budget? How is that different from what I tell people is you have to submit an application to the CVB and they bring it to the TDC for advice, and if you can get some money, then you're happy to and lucky to do so. So how is it different, and what's the timetable for submission?
Well, some of these are recurring events. And so and new this year, we put the air show in the budget, so that they didn't have to come to you. But if I am approached with an event, we are approached with an event, I tell everyone our budget process starts in February. If you want to get into the budget, you got to come to me in February or March, and you got to show me your proposal. And then if we vet it and it's worthwhile, we'll stick you in the budget. Too often then I don't hear anything. And then they're scrambling. And once today happens, well, even before today, but you guys are voting to recommend the budget today, that's it. I can't get anything else. We can't get anything else in the budget for the next fiscal year. Everything will have to come, So, you know, and it is really hard in county too many people to get that message out there. But for anybody who asks, February, we start our budget in February.
Okay, and there's a form on the website where they,
No, just give me, no, just give me a call.
okay,
Let's talk about it. Send me your deck, send me your budget. There are lots of questions we ask. 90% of the time, I would say that those who contact me, I never hear from them again. Because they just don't have the kind of backup that we need in order to justify the spend.
okay.
Good, thank you. Tiff?
So that, I just want to piggyback on Mayor Lee's. And I noticed that the boat show is not in here. So is there nothing allocated?
Which is coming out of the marketing budget.
Oh, they are, okay. So they, okay. And then I was something near and dear to my heart is the Food and Wine Festival. That was probably too late for an application. Is that what?
For some reason it slipped,
Okay.
but but I think. Budget.
It is, I missed.
Yeah, it was.
I'll check for you, but-
It was after that meeting that you had with.
Okay.
And, I realized it slipped.
Okay.
So it's in it for 75.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Stacy, no, it's a,
Yes.
the mayor, a suggestion on these last minute applications that we've been getting. It's very time consuming for everybody, for the CVB team, first of all, to analyze and make suggestions, and for us to be discussing. I'm fairly new this time around on the board here, and we'll be spending the majority of the last 2 minutes just discussing this. I think that we should establish a policy that there's a cutoff date, as you said, Stacy. This is the date to submit. We can consider putting the budget for next year. If there is something very big that comes last moment, that is really big, then it can be discussed. But this is, in my mind, is too much time. I'm not saying they're not relevant. They are, but to be coming to us, spending half of the meeting discussing these applications, I think is counterproductive in a way.
I appreciate that. There's an administrative code provision that requires this process. There's no date in that administrative code. And so, and I don't know, quite frankly, I have to talk to our county attorney if we can just unilaterally decide your a cutoff date. So I'll look into that. I get it. And, but the administrative code, Visit Lauderdale does not have the ability to just say no or yes. You all have to vet it first.
I'm good with that role. I actually think that it's healthy that if events come mid-year, not everything is planned before February and can be, scheduled in that fashion. And I think that it's okay for them to come and seek funding. And if we decide it's appropriate, great. I mean, probably many of them probably don't rise to the, level of data that's needed, or sometimes recommendations for approval by ourselves and your decision as well. I don't mind the process. I think it's actually helpful when we can say, yes, you can submit an application. And even if it doesn't go anywhere, at least we didn't shut the door on that potential event that was wanting to come to Broward County. They didn't even give me the time of day to even apply. So I think getting them in the process, getting them connected with Visit Lauderdale through this, maybe even the next year, they know the process. But if we shut the door without a process, then maybe they just get it turned off and they just don't know that.
As Stacy will tell you, I don't think the county commission would permit, an arbitrary cutoff date without the ability to come in, because I know I can think of several of my colleagues on the county commission that, if something comes up in their district, they want it, they will call and demand that it be funded. And if it's not funded here, they'll try and just put something on the county commission agenda, which I normally argue against because I don't like going around the process. But I'll get outvoted on these because a lot of the commissioners, if something in their district, they're gonna put it in the budget, period. And it probably gets vetted better if it goes through this process than if the commissioner just decides, I don't care. I'm directing the CBB to give them 100,000, which is what happens.
I'll tell you that there was, I got a phone call a couple weeks ago from from an event producer. You all looked at the event back when we met in May. You said no. He called me again 2 weeks ago, asked me if he could have money. I told him why, and he wanted to come back today and pitch again. And the event is in 9 days. And I said to him, we don't get any bang for that buck. We're going to give you 25, 50, whatever. We have 9 days to promote ourselves for your event. So you'll see him again though at the next CDC meeting for his event next week.
Soccer team. I bet.
No, it was one of the Caribbean festivals, I think, in Miramar.
Steve?
Yes, I was gonna say.
Your spotlight is on.
Oh, thank you.
It's always on.
Nobody.
Bill,
I heard our eyes over here.
The spotlight.
Well, and-
Your eyes.
Pretty good.
Are you?
Nice try. No,
All right, let me show you how to do it. Let me show you how you do it.
I just don't see where.
I'll show you how to do it.
Go down in the right corner. That's the way. Okay.
Deal with that. Okay.
Deal with it.
Let me show you.
Yes,
Pull down.
this is a new phone I got last week.
New phone, who dis?
All you do is right here, just bring that there.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Stacy, I have one question which I've long had, and if you can just elaborate on that, both for these and for the ones that we'll be hearing today. I see groups that, are claiming, that when I read these, I think that if they're lucky, they'll get people from an adjacent city coming, although normally they're just, people from their own city or their own small group, and they'll have 200 or 300 people, if they're lucky, show up at their event, and they claim 8,000 room nights. And slight exaggeration, but you get the general idea. My understanding is we're really limited in our ability to verify this, but can you explain again, what the verification process is? Because there are functions that really bring people to the restaurants and hotels. And then there's a lot of functions that don't, but claim that they do.
Okay, well, there are a couple of kinds of functions. So if you're talking about a conference or a group,
No, those are easy.
okay, right. They have hotel contracts.
Right.
Most of these events don't have hotel contracts, some like the air show do, where you can verify room nights. If not,
Football is freedom. I mean,
Yes.
or
okay, so we're not there yet,
Or Afro Festival, Art Explosion,
right,
stories from.
right. Okay, so we're not there yet, but
Yeah,
generally speaking, the state statute allows us to spend money for the marketing and promotion of the destination. We are not an agency that is just room night driven, like a hotel.
right.
So that if it's an event that looks like it's interesting, could grow into something, we think that it is our responsibility to seed it and allow it to grow. So even if they don't make the room night goal, and we have an opportunity in our contracts to withhold money if they don't meet their goals, because we don't pay them up front anymore. But room nights is not the only metric we use. If it's a really cool event that will highlight the destination and bring people in later, or hope to bring people in later, that's something that we think about.
I agree with you, and I think that's appropriate, and I think we should be funding these type of things. It just annoys me when I see something that has a projected number of room nights that I know is completely fictitious, even though it may be,
Okay.
well, no, it is my belief that a lot of the cultural events collectively bring people to Broward County. And they bring businesses to Broward and things like that. I don't have any problem. I would fund them without their saying, for some of them, that they're going to bring, 400 room nights. I just object when they say they're going to bring 400 room nights when they'll be lucky to do 20.
And I agree. I mean, we agree with you. But it's probably that they think that that's what we want to see.
They do
To make it
think.
right. And to make it right, we'd much prefer to, just tell us what you think realistically. We might fund it anyway, because it has other factors on our list, not just a generation of room.
So there could be a caveat here, Mayor. I know that Broward County has a cultural arts division,
Yes.
which I understand does grant some
About that
funds,
as well.
does grant some funds. And maybe for the local events that, our cities might be approached with that are too small to call hotel generating, but nonetheless, important and valuable to all of us from a cultural standpoint, whether it's music or whatever, or the arts. Maybe there ought to be a certain dollar figure that wherever from the county budget, I don't want to say that it has to come from TDT or what have you. Maybe there could be a process for these events that come here and get let down, if it's still valuable, as you said, Mayor, for the county, within the cultural arts division to have a certain amount of money and a different process, maybe that's more appropriate.
I am also the county commission rep for the last 3 years to the cultural council. I can tell you if something is turned down here after having been vetted, not really a great chance that it will be approved by the cultural council. The issue is, I agree completely with what you've said. I agree that there are, I don't know that we're ever going to be able to show how many people the Performing Arts Center actually brings, how many room nights it brings, but I can tell you that the Performing Arts Center on a larger basis helps bring people to Broward County, and I think that they should be funded. And other similar groups that collectively bring people to Broward. I just hate when they're making stuff up. Okay.
I will tell you, Mayor, that Phil Dunlap, who runs cultural, and I have had a lot of conversations about this because there is an overlap. There is cultural tourism. And I know that he would very much like to repurpose the TDT Challenge Grant money to something to beef up his ability to grant funds to worthy events and organizations. Because the TDT Challenge Grant is a capital program. And
There's exciting as well.
how many municipal performing arts centers does the county need?
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions before we move on?
Yeah, a couple of clarifications, if it's possible, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Cost allocation for 678,000, is that from the county cost allocation?
Confirming, yes, yeah, we have numerous expenses that the county assigned to us, yeah.
Okay, all right, and, and the reserve revenue stabilization, the 9.6 million reserves, the reserve 9.6 million, what is that exactly?
We call it a rainy day fund. It's the fund, the county has a standard that it's set across from, I know there's a name for this, but it has a standard that it assigns how much funding it wants every agency to have.
Well, listen, there's a state statute that requires us to hold 5%.
Okay,
Stabilization fund.
Right,
Okay,
right.
Now, we did use some of that last year in a previous year. We were able to dip into it because there was an emergency, COVID really hit. And so we used that to buck up the expenses so we could add more, do more advertising. But because things have gone so well this last few months, they're able to refill that fund. Yeah.
excellent, that's all I have.
So, I just said, somebody's got to show me how to use these things. Okay, were you done, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, are there any additional questions? Any additional questions? If not, let's move on.
We had a motion to recommend approval of the.
Okay, is there a motion to recommend approval moved by Mayor Trentella, seconded by Mr. Petrillo? All those in favor, any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, show that adopted unanimously.
Excuse me, do we need to do that for the county budget as well?
It's the same.
It's the same, okay,
Thank
thank you.
Okay. Now, Stacy, are you now on marketing?
Yep.
Okay. You're recognized, ma'am. Or will you be making this, or will
No.
Camilla Clark be? Okay.
Oh, she's wearing hot pink today. She understands. You know that?
I heard about that.
Right colors Wednesday.
On camera.
Yeah, I like that.
It's okay.
Should I just begin?
You have to have.
Nice, like never before.
All right, I love it. Good morning and thank you for this opportunity. As you all know, we launched a new brand this past May, Everyone Under the Sun. And while the world is in cautious state of recovery, we anticipate that in 2022, the demand for travel will be unprecedented, but the competition will be fierce. We expect in the coming months, we expect heightened competition with travel and leisure as destinations open. But despite that, we're happy to report, and Candace reiterated this, that group travel is already making a comeback. As our marketing must be aggressive, responsive, and flexible. You all talked about this today. You know, we need to get out there and differentiate ourselves. And the new post-pandemic travel economy provides substantial opportunities for this approach. In a moment, I'll walk you through the plan, but first, let me take you on a deeper dive at the metrics behind our strategy. We recognize that effective and efficient marketing is founded on solid research. And we've partnered with some of the most respected names in travel research industry to determine several fundamental elements to help us shape the 2022 plan. We expanded our demographic profile, increased our targeted household income, and shifted to a more seasonal approach with a focus on sports and events. We continue to reach the traditional markets. We've also added a few additional northern cities for winter season, as they tend to generate significantly more yield. As we dive into the plan, our goal is clear. Tony, next slide, please. 2 more. There we go. Our plan is clear. We're going to increase destination awareness, occupancy, average daily rate, and visitor spend, while we leverage the post-pandemic travel opportunities. We will build on a foundation of tried and true, traditional objectives, as well as new and innovative strategies, all designed to increase economic impact to the destination. However, as the traveling consumer continues to emerge, we will also leverage and navigate the opportunities presented by post-pandemic travel to excel beyond the competitive set, and will also present the same opportunities to them. So our competitors are going to be opening up and having opportunities as well. Our strategy will effectively speak to our target audiences at all phases of the travel journey, from dreaming and research to consideration, planning, and booking. We will exemplify what makes Greater Fort Lauderdale different while defining the new Visit Lauderdale brand. We will use market research to better understand the LGBT motivators and remind the LGBT plus travelers that this area is Florida's largest and most popularly diverse gay hub. We will target multicultural travelers with messaging that emphasizes the destination's inclusivity and warm, welcoming environment, supporting and proving the Visit Lauderdale brand, and position Greater Fort Lauderdale as a singular Florida sports destination, emphasizing sports training and events uniquely suited for the destination. We'll unify the destination's product and capture the surge in demand amid the reopening of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Broward County Convention Center, and position Port Everglades as a preferred cruise port in Florida. We'll develop co-op programs that leverage marketing dollars and increase brand visibility, and drive leisure visitation to the destination by defining the area as a luxury destination and promoting it to high net worth and income individuals, which leads me to our luxury campaign. As our destination has grown, so has our community's ability to attract and satisfy the luxury segment. And this campaign was developed to target a very specific niche, the luxury traveler. As with all good marketing efforts, a primary objective of the campaign is to draw attention to itself and to the destination. Our approach is intentionally provocative, edgy, and fun, all in an effort to garner attention and to position our destination as such. You'll note we created several personas to speak to these travelers. So we'll welcome the cocktail connoisseur, the nonconformist, and thrill seekers to whatever floats their boats. So allow me to present to you our luxury campaign.
Hello.
That's the digital version of the ads, and Tony.
Just kidding.
That's right. Take
There you go.
It showcases some of the print ads that we've put together, and then also our digital ads. And these ads will run across a number of publications, print, digital, and social, including New York Times and Travel and Leisure and many others. And finally, our budget, which you all have already discussed. So I don't think I need to really touch on that. And that pretty much wraps up my portion of the presentation. I certainly welcome any questions. And I believe Stacy has a little show and tell in the room with the New York Times. So
Thank you. Thank you. Wanted to show everybody.
Does Elmore pay for that product, please?
That's how we got, we don't want to show you the New York Times magazine advertisement that went, just this past weekend. I have to tell you that I've gotten several emails and texts from people that say, I don't know what your place is selling, but I'm buying. And it is definitely something that we've never done before here in Visit Lauderdale. And I hope you like it. Hope you like it.
All I have to say is about time.
Thank you.
So I'll tell you, it's everything
It's
besides.
outside the box, I like it.
It's fresh.
Thank
On
you.
the visuals that we saw with the yachting and the boating, I love because that's what really makes us stand out, even though we see it every day and may not, think twice about it. Very sexy, very eye-catching, and I think that's why you kind of did that. While the primary visitor might be, let's just call it the family from the Midwest, but at the same time, to grab the attention of someone thumbing through whatever publication or digital art that you're throwing in front of them, this is going to grab the attention, and then maybe. And what's the logic of going so sexy, knowing that not every traveler is those people?
Well, it is
Aspirational.
just.
We all want to do that.
Publications. It is not being placed in, you're not going to see this in,
Women's Day magazine.
Reader's Digest, everything.
country, garden,
Well,
whatever.
do we have an alternative
But-
marketing strategy for
but-
that market?
Well, let me tell you, my job is really tough because when you got to spend 3 hours with these guys, it's just miserable.
Right.
But we think that we are a sexy destination and we have been vanilla for so long that people only think they're going to come here with their families. And there's nothing wrong with that. But our research suggests the average number in a group is 1.8. That's not a family. Okay, that's a couple or a throuple. So we should be talking.
What are you doing to my city?
Dean, I laugh because I gotta say, that's already happening.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
Tim?
I'm the one in the restaurant nightlife. That is happening, and through the pandemic, it had ramped up because you have all these young people coming in from Boston and New York, and this is what they're gravitating to, okay? You see 5,000 people at the wharf. That is that, okay? That is not all resident. So
You mean couples coming here for a sexy time?
Having a great time.
I got you.
yeah, they want to have it.
Really the threesome.
That's right, but they want to go out, they want to see, if you look
I mean,
out,
everyone under the sun, right?
if you look out on the New River on a weekend day, you see chartered yachts going up and down with groups of people and things like that.
And I hate to
Right,
say
right,
this,
yeah.
please shut the mics for a moment, but just kidding on that. The fact is that all tourists are not created equal. And I think if we're trying to attract a higher spending clientele, I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's something we should be. We need to try and have Hollywood Beach, which is not going to be that group. But we also need the people that are renting the yachts and that are renting the presidential suites at the nice hotels because they are spending more and contributing more per visitor to our economy.
And this was only 10% of our budget.
Yep.
We only spent 10%
Right.
this
Yeah,
year.
that would be my comment, as long as.
Wait, all right, wait. I'm going, there's a lot of discussion, so I'm gonna go in order. I'm gonna go step clockwise, counterclockwise around the room. Mayor Trantalis first, then Mr. Trillo.
So I definitely think that there's merit to trying to appeal to that customer. But one caveat that we must always remind ourselves of, and that is, we don't want to be Miami Beach, because Miami Beach focused a lot on the sex aspect of it. And at some point it turned and it became
Violent.
too aggressive, and Miami Beach is a mess today. So the lesson that they didn't learn, it was to balance it out. So,
And it wasn't marketed to that level.
Right.
Brand. It
So-
was not even close to market.
okay, so Fort Lauderdale will continue to try to appeal to everyone, obviously everyone under the sun. A lot of the initiatives that we've undertaken are intended to be more mainstream, middle of the road, family kind of thing, like the aquatic center and soccer and, bringing ice skating to Fort Lauderdale and things like that. So, we do work hand in hand and we work together. But clearly what you showed here is definitely what my city is about. You're talking about appealing to the LGBT community. They've been doing this for decades. So, and obviously it works because it's a very robust market, and that's how they continue to thrive. So, so I applaud you. I think it was great. Whoever our advertising agency is really captured what needed to be done. And as Mayor Levy said, it focused on many different things, yachting, nightlife, just relaxing, enjoying, but in a very upscale way. Definitely, it's not for everybody. So, thank you, and I applaud you for what you've done.
Okay, let me say one thing, and then I'm just gonna say we're gonna have to go fairly quickly because we are on an agenda. You're talking about Miami Beach. I know an awful lot of people that just won't go there any longer because they don't feel safe.
Well, the point I'm trying to say, I don't want to turn,
I heard what you said. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I also agree with that. I think that our city takes a much more proactive approach to managing that when they hear about things coming and managing that. So I agree with that. We don't want to end up like that. As a representative from the MAC, I just want everyone here to know that the MAC vetted this plan. Everybody loved it. They voted unanimously on it. They said it was the best plan they've seen in a long time. So
They don't want it to be introduced to the models. Okay.
I have their numbers.
All right. Okay. Lorenz?
I'm sure you.
And no, everything has really been said. I was going to say the exact same thing. I mean, if 10% from the budget, I fully agree. That's the right thing. But at the same time, the tip doesn't want to be the fountain blue. And I don't think Hollywood wants to be Miami. So, I think it needs to be a fair match there.
Anyone else? If not, we need to be moving on.
We need to vote,
Yes, sir.
recommend approval of the marketing plan.
Okay, I was going, let me get to that.
Oh,
Before I did that, I had one other question. Lawrence, while you're talking, could you just very, very, very quickly tell us how Diplomat's coming along?
Yeah, absolutely. So we opened up one outlet. We only have 5 outlets, but the main outlet is Diplomat Prime is open. We are pretty healthy from a group point of view for next year. We have about 80% of group rooms on the books for next year that we would have had in 2019. So that is definitely, so that is building up pretty fast.
When did you open the hotel?
June 1.
June, okay.
Yeah, June 1, but we still have about 5,000 group rooms for the remainder of the year. So that's okay. It's a little disappointing, but for next year, it's looking pretty strong. The little shock that we had a 2,000 group last weekend, week. And so we had washed, as we call that, slipped already that 30%. And they ended up coming in with 50%. So 50% didn't show. And main reason was Delta variant. So we've definitely seen that happening. But next year we're looking pretty strong.
Great. And as I said earlier, nobody's talking about a shutdown, but Delta is hurting everybody, so please urge all of you employ a lot of people, urge them to get vaccinated and be wearing masks, because that really is what will get us through this.
And the discussion, Mr. Mayor, that you just mentioned at the beginning of the meeting where, based on the unions, and if there is mandatory vaccination is for us really important as well, and we're going through that same discussion, obviously, at this time.
Yeah, very good, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 marketing plan?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Tim Petrillo, seconded by Romalo Maflahe. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, so adopted unanimously. Stacy, now did you want to make a presence report or have you ready? Okay. Tourism sponsorship applications.
Okay. So we have 3 tourism sponsorship applications, but before we do the first one, how do you want to proceed with these? What I mean by that, there's an administrative code that requires this process, but that's all it says. Do you want the applicants to make presentations? Do you only want the paperwork from Visit Lauderdale to consider? Do you want the applicants to be on the line in case you have questions, but not have them make?
I think that is what I think. I think that they should be available.
And I think we're gonna base our decision on your recommendation.
Generally.
Okay, all right.
But I think that generally we'll follow your recommendation, maybe not always, but generally, and I think it will be good to have them on the phone. But there's simply no way that we can give them 2 or 3 minutes, because if we do that after 10 minutes, I'm going to have to take a gavel upside their heads to make them stop. So
We should do that at the county commission meetings.
sometimes I promise you. I believe first one is the Miramar Afro Karim Festival.
Mike.
Yep. Good morning, everybody. Just to pick up on the conversation from earlier a little bit, I want everybody to know that when you look at the funding request evaluation forms that you have in front of you, the total room nights is based on a tool that we use. It's an economic impact calculator. So when we work with sporting events or festivals, to your point, determining the number of room nights generated for the destination is a challenge. So we really kind of dive into all the data we have available to us, but most particularly, it's the total number of attendees and trying to understand best where they come from. Then our modeling based on the type of event it is allows us to get at least a snapshot of the room nights that we can expect. We have a lot of other data that we look at as we evaluate these things too. But anyway, we'll start with the Miramar Afro Karim Festival, February 26, 2022. The request comes in for $50,000. The staff recommendation is $10,000. They have 4,000 attendees, projected room nights of 277. We funded them in 2020 for $25,000.
Absolutely.
Did they have the event in 2020?
Yes. It's my understanding that was one of the last events before the pandemic.
Okay, let me say again, this is the type, from what I'm reading, this is the type of event that I think should be funded, because even though I'm not convinced how many room nights, if this is.
It's only 30. Wait, how many? Oh, I'm sorry, 270.
Yeah, okay, apparently total projected 70 room nights, but if this really is as they're indicating, international artist signature event for the city of Miramar, with a real budget of $150,000, this looks to me like the kind of event that, while it may not bring that many, only 70 room nights for this, it collectively, it's the kind of function that I think would break people.
And it'll bring people from the drive market, which don't stay in rooms, but come across the county line.
Well, is our not giving them $50,000 going to prevent them from putting on this event? If they're asking for 1/3 of their funding?
Yeah, well, we recommended 10.
I know that, but they're asking for 50. So if we only give them 10, is that going to prevent them from putting on the event?
Well, the city of Miramar is doing 75 towards their total budget. If we give them 10, if they're not able to raise the remaining 65,000 from Aetna, the CS consultants, all of these different people, but ticket sales, Oh, it's a free concert, sorry.
But
Right.
we do not feel that we should, unless we are the presenting sponsor, we should not be the overwhelmingly primary funder. And if they can't put the event on, if we don't step up, then maybe there shouldn't be an event.
Yep. So,
I'll move that.
additional discussion. Okay, Mayor Trentalis has moved approval, seconded by Ms. Matlani. Is there any additional discussion? Is there any additional discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Show it adopted
No,
unanimously.
we have one abstention. Kamasha Sevia abstains because she works for the city of Miramar. She
Okay.
fill out the appropriate paperwork.
Okay, and this is for the recommended amount of $10,000. The next item on the agenda is the 2021 Football is Freedom Festival. Do you explain that one?
Football is Freedom is a new event. It's from the folks with the Bob Marley Foundation. It's designed to promote girls' participation in sports, youth participation in sports on an international level. They'll feature a women's soccer game at Drive Pink Stadium with Jamaica, and I don't know that the second team has been decided yet. The festival will be over the week, October 18th through 25. The game will be October 24th. They'll have camps for kids, et cetera, et cetera. The projected number of attendees in the first year is 12,500. Our projected room nights is 2,188. The funding request came in at 50,000, and the staff review recommendation is 25,000.
A lot of room nights. We'll get a large international contingent visiting. Is there first, let's get a motion to approve and then we'll discuss it. Their motion to approve the recommended, moved by Mayor Levy, seconded by Tim Petrillo. Now discussion on this.
Well, I think clearly everybody knows that the Marley brand, the Marley family are what we refer to as reggae royalty, but nothing is more international than the Marley name, and I think it's got such a great brand, and what Sedella is doing with the reggae girls, I've seen it in the media, and it's something that we ought to, like Stacey said, seed and grow. I think it's positive for the local community. At the same time, helps grow the soccer footprint. For all these obvious reasons, it's a huge win-win. And just for FYI, in Hollywood, we do have, which I'm happy to see, just a few weeks after this event on I think it's November 6th, called the Marley Cup in downtown Hollywood. Kimani Marley is going to be putting on a reggae concert with some other artists, but at the same time tying it into his own work with soccer and youth. And so there's going to be some soccer activity at the same time as a beautiful, music event as well that the city is supporting. So I'm happy to see this will be beforehand, and we'll be able to let everybody know about the Marley Cup through this event. So as well. So that's great to see. We're creating a footprint in Broward County of soccer, the Marleys together with all that activity. If we can get that to move from Miami, the annual Marley Festival, et cetera, toward Broward, I think it draws a great crowd, and it's again, it's top of the list for reggae.
Any additional discussion?
Just to point out that, there are talks right now about bringing a national women's soccer team to Fort Lauderdale. And it will be connected with Inter Miami, but it will stay in Fort Lauderdale, even if Miami moves, even if it.
I'm not sure they ever are going to.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, so there are some serious talks. So this would be an interesting kind of way to introduce the idea of women's soccer in our community. We're really hopeful that we'll be able to bring women's soccer. It'll be a national team. It's going to be a new franchise, and the Inter Miami folks are ponying up to try to bring that to our community. So it should be great.
Thank you. We've heard several people in favor. Is there anybody against it? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. So it adopted unanimously. Our last one is Art Explosion Stories from Within.
And this is an event that has been in our budget and it was just forgot. This year, we just forgot to put it in the current fiscal year, which is why you're required to review it. Because you did not have an opportunity to review the budget.
So let's call this a Scrivener's error. Is there anybody objecting to correcting the Scrivener's error? If not, is there a motion for approval?
Agree to that.
Moved by Mayor Trentalis, seconded by Maflahe. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, nay. Show it adopted unanimously. Council member comments and discussion on non-agenda items. We'll go around the room. We will start with Mayor Levy. You don't have to say anything.
Really beyond what we've already discussed here today, just looking forward to tourism, of course, coming back as strong as it has been, and hopeful that this variant won't derail us. And thanks to everybody for their good work. That's all.
I want to, Stacy, I think a great job. You haven't been quiet during pandemic. So it was a great presentation.
Impossible.
When am I ever quiet during?
And on all these new events, it's the new population also in Broward County. So I think, it adheres to that. So congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, going around. All right, we're done with that. Is there any member of the public online that wishes to comment? Is there any member of the public online that wishes to comment? Is there any additional business to come before today's meeting of the TDC?
Next meeting would be generally.
Well, that's up to Mayor Geller. Do you want another meeting under your? So it would be
October.
in October or really early November.
Okay. All right.
And that basically screws Vice Mayor Udine out of a board meeting, but you don't care, do you? We'll do it.
I didn't get a mayor's breakfast. I didn't get a mayor's ball. I have no travel. Yeah, being mayor during a pandemic kind of sucks. You have more work and none of the perks. So, all right.
Thank you.
We can
He's just finally getting into this, right? Doing all these years.
If there is nothing additional to come in front of the TDC, Mayor Trentalis moves we adjourn. Sure, that adopted without objection. Gosh, I'm running.